Awesome. Well, Michael, thank you for sitting down. I appreciate it. Why don't we start off with the easy stuff? You want to tell us a little bit about you and your role at Yageo and what you guys are doing?
Sure. Michael Calderin, I'm the Director of Information Security and Compliance for the Yageo Group. We're a Taiwan-based electronic components manufacturer, producing things like capacitors, resistors, et cetera. Many of the building blocks that end up inside the technology we all use on a regular basis. I've been with the organization for about 6 years, but have going on 30 years experience in IT and security.
Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about the course of those 6 years. Obviously we've been working with you for a while. Us being an MDR provider. I'd love to understand a little bit about how that relationship started, what you guys were experiencing way back then when you decided to bring us in, and how that has evolved over time.
Yeah, well, when we first started talking with Ontinue about MDR services, we had a SIM in place of our own. We had a relationship with a third party who was managing it, so to speak, but we got a lot of noise. We spent nearly all of our time chasing our tails and not producing value, not finding incidents we really cared about. And so as that contract was ending, it was time to think about what was the next stage of our evolution. We had a long commitment with Microsoft at that time. Sentinel was just coming out, and it was an opportunity for us to shift away from the on-prem tools that we had at the time and take advantage of both new technology and make a change in the partnership and the relationships that we had, so that we could see what happens if we try a totally different approach. And what happened was we found things right away that we cared about, and the Ontinue team helped us remediate them almost instantly.
Yeah, actually, I'd love to double click just for a minute on the team and your makeup, right? Because as you said, you had a third party who was managing an existing SIM and some tools in place. Obviously, you made the decision to standardize on Microsoft or move in that direction. How big is the team?
We're a small team. We're less than 10 people, and of that, we were a lot smaller at the time, for that matter. But even within that group, there's a subset of us who handle incident response. So, sure, we might be almost 10 people now, but it's really 2 or 3 people who are hands-on at any one time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that makes total sense, right? Why you would be looking for some external help to manage all of that and reduce that noise, cut through that. From your perspective, in your role, obviously a leadership role, how do you look forward? What does that look like? So you brought us in to help manage the day-to-day, right? And take some of the burden off of that team. Ideally, that frees you up to some degree to focus forward a little bit. And I'm just curious to know, you personally, what do you want to tackle next? Where do you guys go from here?
Well, it's more of the same, really. It's more with less. We're always going to be a relatively small team. We have tens of thousands of employees around the world. My team isn't going to grow to scale to that. And so we have to be able to identify partners who will help us do more than we can by ourselves, considerably more. And we have to find ways to continue to automate and move faster and cut through the noise to find what we really care about. So my focus right now is all around making us more agile, making us move faster, while we're also dealing with new acquisitions, potential future plans, getting the business and the security and the IT teams to all march to the same beat.
Yeah, that's something that I talk about with customers all the time, right? Particularly CISOs who are trying to figure out, how can I better enable the business to move forward, right? I mean, ultimately, it's really hard when you're facing the firefight on a daily basis to think forward, to think about the next piece of the puzzle. And I think I'd love to understand from your perspective, you mentioned acquisitions, you mentioned sort of business progress. Are there any initiatives that, from your perspective, you want to be able to enable as a CISO? I mean, I don't know that CISOs always get to think like that.
No, we don't. Part of it is the nature of what we do, but part of it is also the people around us. We have to be able to, I'm going to steal something from one of my peers who I talked with earlier in the week. He basically said, we have to step up. Not that we just have to take the initiative, but we have to put ourselves at a higher level. We're able to see the whole picture, because that's the only way that we can better understand what the business needs and make sure that we're acting in alignment with them. So, for us, it's how do we help enable sales? How do we make sure that our production lines remain up and viable and that we're able to deliver products on time? How do we continue to innovate at the pace that the business is ready for?
Right.
Not just from a security team, but IT, product, everybody. We play a role. In some cases, security teams have bad reputations where they're the blockage, they're the stopping factor. The office of no is an overused term. For me, it's always been, we're yes and. Here's how we do it, here's how we enable, here's how we can do this safely, provide that guidance. Ultimately, what we do is a business decision. So I'm never going to say we can't do that, but may give some very strong reasons why we shouldn't.
Absolutely. And I would imagine that the more time you can devote to that kind of thinking, I mean, being able to think at that level requires time and energy, right? It's not It's not something that you can just do, or dedicate halfway. Like I imagine freeing you up to focus on those things is critically important for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. When I first started, I was hands-on. I was the one-person security team until I started to hire.
Yeah.
And you can't work at that level when you're being technical 100% of the time.
Yeah.
When you are constantly putting out fires, you have to have the people around you in order to make that transition successful.